Hello guys, and welcome back to another video. Today I'm trying something a little bit different. I'm going to be playing around a little more with some live audio in this kind of video because I think it makes the video sound a little more realistic and maybe a little more relatable. We'll see how this goes. I'll be switching between this lavalier mic that I've just bought and my voiceover mic. Hopefully the audio isn't terrible, but you know, I'll just find out in editing. So today I have these two Dell Optiplex 7020s. They are broken. I bought them from eBay. I paid about $70 in total after tax and shipping for both of them, so $35 each. They both turn on, but do not send any display signal. So today I'm going to be seeing if I can try to fix at least one of them. I might set the other one aside for some future videos, so I think I'll only focus on this one right here. And yeah, let's get into it. So I'm going to start this out by just verifying that it does actually turn on but not post at all. So I'm going to get VGA, and here I'll add power and see what it does. Okay, fans are spinning. Let me open the side panel. That front fan is not spinning. That's a little weird. It's vibrating much faster. I think the shutter speed or the frame rate on the camera is making it look a little weird. Yeah, that guy is not... Ooh. Yeah, that bearing is cooked. Okay, well, looks like we'll have a fan repair. Oh! Yeah, I'm still going to replace that because it does not feel good, but... At least we have a fan repair that will do. I'll probably have to figure out how to get a connector that'll work because Dell uses the proprietary connectors in these ones. But there is nothing on the monitor and I haven't seen anything yet. So clearly the issue described was accurate, and yeah, these guys respond to power but they don't do anything. So just unplug this and let's start with some basic troubleshooting because something like this can be caused by a lot of issues. First thing I'm going to check is RAM, and also maybe CMOS. CMOS is probably a simpler thing to start with. So that's our CMOS battery right there. Zoom you in a little bit. Right here's our CMOS battery. I'm going to go grab a multimeter to see if I can test that. Alright, I have a multimeter now, and I've remembered I probably should have checked to see if we were getting any power button flash codes from this guy, because these Dells, they will flash their power button. Generally, I think it's yellow in a certain pattern if it detects an issue. But let's see. 2.3 about. Yeah, that's too low. These are supposed to be 3 volts. You can see it says on the cell when our camera pulls focus. Yeah, it says 3 volts, should not be 2.3. So let me go get a new one of those. All right, I'm back. I have a new battery. I'll just show you guys that this one tests a lot higher than 2.3 volts. About 3.3 there. It's a little out of focus, but whatever. I'm gonna go ahead and put this in. This will also have done a CMOS reset because the battery's been out for a while here. So that's 2 birds with 1 stone, and we'll see if this changes anything. I plugged everything back into the system, and it still would not provide any video out. So new CMOS battery didn't quite do it. Well, next thing I'm going to check is our RAM. We'll also note something that's a little weird is I plug this guy in, and it turns on and it stays on. Generally, they'll turn on when you plug them in, and they'll, after a CMOS reset, boot loop for a little bit. And then they shut down and they're good. So this is our current RAM. It's a single stick. Man, the focus doesn't want to play nice today. It's DDR3 1600 megahertz. Nothing too crazy. Let me go get a known good stick. Here we go, another 1600 megahertz. DDR3 module, 4 gigs. I'll try the same slot at first, but we'll rotate through the slots if this doesn't change anything. Once again, I plugged everything back into the system and let it sit for a minute or two. It still didn't give any signs of a signal to the monitor.
I also unplugged the faulty case fan so that it wouldn't cause any issues.
Alright, so CMOS and CMOS reset didn't quite do it. Oh yeah, let me check the power codes like I mentioned. I'm not sure if you'll be able to see this. We have I think that's solid, yeah, it's solid white power buttons. It thinks that it's fine. It's not telling us that it's got some kind of a post error or anything, which is unhelpful, but yeah. I think next, what I'm gonna try to do, just before I start messing around with switching RAM, I'm actually gonna see if it gets angry at me if I remove all the RAM, because hopefully it shows some sign of life. We're gonna make something very obviously wrong with it. Hopefully it responds. If it doesn't, then there's definitely an issue with the motherboard and its BIOS and stuff. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, so it's not happy, which is good. Okay. So we know that it at least knows when there is certainly something wrong with it. We'll try this slot. This slot should be the other channel. And of course, it's also a different slot. So let's see what happens here.
Still no post or any sign of life on the monitor.
We'll see if it does something. What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna just set it up here and I'm gonna walk away, maybe go make some coffee or something. Wait for 10-15 minutes, because there's a chance that I'm just being a little bit impatient. It should post by now. Don't get me wrong, this is taking way too long to post, so there's something wrong, but maybe it just needs a little more time. And I'm gonna try to give that to it. Yeah, I'm just gonna walk away for a bit and come back, let you know what happens.
After around 20 minutes of letting the computer sit there was still no post or sign of life, so I decided to move on with the troubleshooting.
So it's been about 20 minutes, and as you can see, still nothing on the display. I can't say I'm very surprised, but I still have some ideas. So I think we may be able to get it fixed. I really hope we can. I don't want to have to buy a new motherboard. They're not expensive. It's like $15 shipped from eBay for a new one of these boards, so yeah, it still makes it a profitable computer, which is not bad. But if I was gonna buy a new board, I would take this old one and I'd try to fix it, because I have a decent understanding of electronics. I have a feeling it might be something to do with the BIOS, though. I don't have a BIOS flasher. I don't really know how to flash a BIOS onto a BIOS chip, you know, not through the BIOS.
I investigated it a little bit, and that will probably never happen. My theory is still on the BIOS, but it's a split BIOS board, and apparently those can be near impossible to flash/fix, and it's most certainly not worth my time.
So we've tried these two slots. We tried both channels, both of the main slots on those channels, but it is technically possible that both those slots on both those channels are somehow dead. So I'm gonna try these other two slots and see if it makes a difference. I'm dubious that it will, but we'll give it a shot.
Putting the RAM in different slots made no difference to the behavior of the computer.
So, thought process here right now, it's probably not, well, I know it's not the CMOS battery, because we replaced that. Pretty certain it's not memory either, because known good stick, tried all 4 slots. None of those are working. We only have a few options right now. Number 1 is the motherboard. I think that's probably what it's going to end up being. Number 2, it could technically be the power supply. I've had something very similar to this actually happen before with a dead power supply. So there is definitely a chance it's the power supply. It's getting warm, but that's normal. But next thing that I'm gonna try real quick, because it's super easy to put in, I'm gonna try and just put a cheap video card in here. See if that gives us an output. All right, yeah, it's not doing anything. So let's do what I'm gonna do next. I'm gonna try to reseat the CPU, because there's a chance that over time, maybe with heat cycles and stuff, it's maybe just not making contact on one of the pads anymore. I'm just trying to shoot at the simplest things that I can shoot at right now, and I'll give that a shot. We'll see what happens. I'll also probably boot it up for a moment with the cooler off, just to see if the CPU is getting power at all. Let's do that, and I'll get back to you once I've removed the cooler.
I then pulled off the CPU cooler and took out the Core i5-4590 CPU.
Bottom of it looks fine. Should be an i5-4590. I'm gonna double check that. Yeah, nothing raises immediate red flags here. The socket looks fine as well. So yeah, let me clean off that thermal paste and put it back in. Like I said before, I'm gonna try booting it up for just a second without the heatsink on, just to see if the CPU is truly getting power, and we'll go from there. So I'm gonna do this. Yeah, it's definitely getting warm. It's not getting that hot. Okay, yeah, now it's starting to get hot. All right. We are in fact getting power to the CPU, which is good. Also means the CPU is probably not dead, because it's clearly doing something. Now I'm gonna put the cooler back on. I'm not gonna put any thermal paste on right now. I'm just gonna set this guy, screw it down, and see if it posts. If it does, I'll of course put thermal paste on. If it doesn't though, we know that it's not our CPU, it's not a CPU reseat that'll fix the problem, and it's something bigger. Yeah, I think we're looking at a motherboard issue. That's what I think. I'm gonna try a different power supply, because the thing is I have another 7020 that I know works perfectly, and so that's a great test bed for these. I was gonna sell it, but I haven't sold it yet because I knew that I was gonna get these, and having a functional one that's identical is really handy when you're testing something like this. I can drop the 4590 in there, just test if that works. I'll borrow its power supply, see if it does the same thing. I can test this power supply in that system. All right, so I've swapped a power supply from the other one in here. This one, interestingly, the other one I don't think was 80 plus gold. This one's 80 plus gold, which is a little bit of an interesting difference between the two, considering they're from the same model of computer. Here we go, let's give it a check. Yeah, so new power supply's not doing anything, which isn't surprising. Now, I'm just gonna see if I can figure out which parts of this system are working. So I'm gonna swap the power supplies out again. I'm gonna put this back in the known good system. I'm gonna put that power supply. Actually, first, sorry, I'm gonna try the power supply from here in the known good system, see if that works, just to check if that power supply is good. And then we can move on to stuff like the CPU. I'm pretty certain the motherboard's dead. This RAM should be fine, but I'll check it again anyway.
I went about testing both the power supplies, RAM, both the original stick and my one, and the CPU. Everything tested good, so at this point I could confidently claim that the issue was to do with the motherboard.
All right, so now we know that everything from that computer is fine, except for the motherboard. I will probably go through with the ordering of a new board, and I'll install that in the same video. I'll have to record it a few days after this because, you know, eBay shipping can take a couple days. But yeah, once the new board comes, I'll put the system back on here, and I'll definitely get that stuff all installed. For now though, I'm going to show you what I'm going to do to get it ready in the meantime for the new board. I completely left this thing plugged in while I did all that. Don't do that, because 5-volt standby exists. Hopefully nothing's damaged. That is why I generally do voiceover. Talking while working is hard for me, but let's just double check that it still works. Hopefully it does. Yeah, it's working fine. Okay, you can shut off now. Yeah, don't do that. Make sure to unplug it. Unplug it, or if your computer's power supply has a switch on the back, flick the switch. But yeah, that is this guy back to normal, and we know that the RAM, the CPU, and the power supply from that other one are all functional. So yeah, let me get this guy closed up and set aside, and then I'll deal with the other one. Let's get this all stripped down and cleaned up before I do that, because there's a few things here that we're gonna need once we get the new board, such as this little power squid right here for SATA. I've already disconnected front panel audio to get the power supply out. Here goes our front USB 3, I think. That, I believe, is everything unplugged. Yeah, so now what I'm gonna do is just unscrew everything and take the board out. Don't need to be really careful with it because it's already dead. So yeah, there's a dead motherboard. Shame that it's dead, but there's really not much we can do about it. It's the bottom of it. It looks like a proprietary Dell motherboard. I mean, what else is there to expect? I am going to steal back my brand new CMOS battery, because that is kind of expensive. And yeah, we will retire this guy to the pile of death with a bad. Gets the label of death. Oh well, it was worth all trying to fix it, you know. I think I was pretty thorough in all that I did to try and diagnose it down to the board. You know, different RAM slots, reseat CPU, CMOS stuff, a graphics card, just in case any of these things were dead here. Yeah, I think this guy's dead. If you have something to suggest, leave it in the comments. I'm not going to destroy the board yet. I'm just going to chuck it, or not really chuck it. I'm just going to set it on top of the other dead computer parts that are on the floor. And yeah, maybe if someone has something in the future to suggest, maybe I can change or try it. But for now, I'm going to replace this board and get the rest of the computer ready to have that.
Now that the computer was mostly ready to receive the new motherboard, it was time to work on the final thing that would get it fully prepared to be fixed up. I need to get another fan for this system. I could have tried putting oil in the fan bearing, as I've had that work in the past, but I've also had the oil work for a little while and then fail very quickly. So I deemed it a wise choice to replace the fan in its entirety.
So they use these proprietary connectors, and I hate that because they do nothing. They add a fifth pin, but they don't use it, and it just makes it so you can't use regular fans. But this lead, right? You can see where it solders to the fan here. So I'm going to find another PWM 80mm fan that has easy access to these solder connections right here. I'm going to desolder these leads from this fan and solder them on directly to the new fan, so they don't have to have a bunch of heat shrink and splicing in the wire. And it'll be a real nice clean job. Perfect fan replacement, completely safe. It's going to be like it was stock. Anyway, that's what I'm going to do. I have another fan. It's used. I don't really have any brand new 80mm PWM fans. It's a little dusty. I'll probably clean it off a little bit later. But it looks like this. And the reason I'm using this one is because you can see that we have easy access to those solder joints. So now we can get to work on changing out these leads. So here we go. I'm gonna try not to block the view of the thing too much. First thing I'm gonna do is pull that sticker back. And I'm just gonna try to reflow all of these little solder joints here. It's gonna short out all of them, but that's fine because we're not using this fan again. We have an issue right here. All right, there we go. So now this fan, we're not gonna reuse, but we are gonna reuse these little rubber mounts here because we do need those. Come on, focus. There we go, we need these guys to mount the new fan. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get a little screwdriver. Let's try and kind of push these guys through because they are kind of barbed on this side, so they can't get pushed back through. I'm just gonna try and shove them all the way through with this screwdriver. Might get a little bit marred up, but as long as they're reusable, that's all that matters. So I got one. Yeah, this thing's bearing is just completely dead. So, bye-bye.
I got really fed up with trying to solder these wires onto the new fan with the camera in my way, so I stopped recording. In short, I made sure to connect the correct wires to the correct pads, positive to positive, negative to negative, PWM, etc. After that, I made sure the solder joints looked pretty clean and almost like they did stock, and the new fan was all ready.
Alright guys, so I have got the soldering done. Is it the most beautiful job in the world? No. Is it completely safe and completely functional for a 12-volt computer fan? Absolutely. So this will be our replacement fan. Let me move my mic. The fans ramp up and down, specifically this one. Maybe you heard that, maybe you didn't, I don't know. But this fan works flawlessly and is ready to continue. All right, so it's been a few days. I'm not actually sure how many. I think it's been about 5, but this arrived, and this should be the replacement motherboard. I actually bought 2, because I'm pretty certain I ran a few quick tests on the other one, and I'm pretty certain the motherboard on that one is dead as well. It was $15, so if something else fixes that other one, I guess I just have an extra motherboard on hand, which isn't a bad thing. Let's go ahead and get this guy all opened up. I haven't opened this yet. Hopefully the motherboards are the right ones. A bunch of packing paper. All right. And these are the two boards. Oh, looks like they have CMOS batteries. I actually didn't expect that. Nice. All right. Now, I'm gonna set one of these aside. We'll get this guy right here all opened up. Nice, it's got a socket cover on it. That's really good to see. I was wondering how they protect the socket in shipping, because you don't want your board to arrive with any bent or broken pins. They're sometimes fixable, but quite hard to do so. Okay, get this out of the way, and that should be our replacement board. Socket looks about good. Let me go grab the computer and we can get this installed and hopefully get the computer all fixed up. So I've got the computer that's going to be getting this motherboard right down here. Pretty much everything it should need is in here except CPU and RAM, because I've set those elsewhere to keep them safe. Looks a little weird without the motherboard in it. There's the fan. I cleaned up some of the flux on the solder joints since you last saw them with some isopropyl alcohol, and I put a piece of electrical tape over the wires on the back because they didn't sit perfectly flush, just because it would be really hard to get that to happen. So yeah, just to make sure they don't go anywhere. And not that it would be an issue if they did, but it looks nicer. Now I've got a new angle and everything's all set up. So it's ready to receive the new motherboard. I'm just gonna take some of these cables, try to bend them out of the way a little bit so they don't get in the way of the new motherboard install. I might actually just pull out the power supply. Let me do that quickly because it'll just make installing this on camera 10 times easier. Power supply has been removed. Now we can go ahead and properly install the motherboard. There we go. That is our new motherboard installed, or mostly. I'm gonna screw it down. So that should be that all done. I'm gonna check that CMOS battery because I have no clue what condition it's in. But past that, we can just continue reassembling stuff. Got a brand new CMOS battery right here. This is actually the one that I put in the other motherboard when I was testing the CMOS battery. So you can just stick that in.
Now it was just a matter of reassembling the computer. I didn't do anything too special here, just plugging everything back in, putting in the parts that had been taken out, applying thermal paste to the CPU, and installing a drive to test the system out with.
Alright, I've got everything hooked up except this power cord that's just hanging out here. I have a keyboard down here to the side. You can't see it, but we're gonna try and boot into the BIOS and see what happens. Actually, it should power cycle for a little while. It's already got farther than it did before. The other one would turn on, stay on, and just not do anything. This one's already power cycled once. Alright, that right there is a post. That's really good. I'm not surprised. I was pretty much entirely confident that it was the motherboard after all the testing that I'd done, but yeah, I think we're good. I'm gonna go to setup with F2. I don't know why I took the camera off the monitor, actually. I should show this. All right, now I can go ahead and see what's going on here. We got all 16 gigs of RAM off to the side there. Yeah, i5 4590. Gonna go ahead and set the date and time because it's almost certainly very wrong. Yep, very, very wrong. Anyway, this guy is pretty much all fixed up. I mean, I'm obviously gonna fix the drive situation here soon. I'll get a drive that I have got for this system. I'll stick it in there with some electrical tape, install a fresh copy of Windows, get that all set up. But for now, I think we're done because everything seems to be working fine you know, it's obviously working way better than it did before the new motherboard. Yeah, all 16 gigs of RAM are recognized. Everything seems to be functional. The splice, this is not even a splice. The soldering job looks good. I've looked it over a lot and it looks perfect. So yeah, I think we can call this one fixed. And I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope to see you all next time. Goodbye.